Hello, everybody. Welcome to the FL Teams special NFL Coaching Carousel special. Hey, FL Teams bringing you this live broadcast or this podcast, depending on how you're listening to it. FLTeams.com, top Florida sports source dedicated to providing in-depth analysis and coverage for all Florida sports, including college and professional sports teams. Check out FLTeams.com and follow them on all of their social medias. And we got a sponsor for this podcast.
Hey, yeah, if you're listening to us on FL Teams, then you know all about our wonderful sponsor, Symbol. We've been telling you about them all year. It's basically the stock market for sports. It allows you to trade sports teams like stocks. You can earn cash payouts when your team wins. So Symbol's blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest and profit off your favorite teams. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, earn cash payouts when your team wins. Join the already 6,000 plus early adopters who have started a profit off of their sports knowledge. Visit www.simbull.com. That's SIMBULL.com. Or you can visit the link in the description. Make sure that when you do create your free account on your first deposit, put in the promo code FLTeams. That'll give you a $10 bonus towards helping build your portfolio. Any of you who jumped in early on the Bengals, hats off to you, right? Hats off to you. But when football season ends, Symbol's still around all your sports needs.
Right. I'll keep getting my win payouts for these guys. Tampa Bay Lightning going on their third straight Stanley Cup. We'll talk about that on another podcast that you may listen to. I'm Jeff Macolino. I host Bolts and Bats on the Bay on FL Teams. I'm joined by Jeremiah Hensley, who you all know from Fins in the Sea, Dolphins podcast, and Andrew Eshman, who is a great partner of FL Teams. He runs the Jag Roar Podcast on YouTube. He's got a great setup. If you're watching the video, you can see this. He's got a beautiful background. I'm jealous right now. Welcome, Andrew, Jeremiah. Thanks for joining us, or me.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So we've got, as every offseason brings, a lot of coach openings, some different circumstances, some different, some people stepping down, some people keeping their job that maybe surprises us, and some guys losing their job that maybe surprises us. 9 openings in the NFL thus far. We'll touch on that in a minute. But 4 have already been filled. So let's run through all of them. The Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders. They all have a new coach. We'll get to that in a second. The Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Minnesota Vikings, and New Orleans Saints still searching for a new head coach to lead their team. So I guess let's start with, out of all of the coaches who got fired, we won't count Sean Payton because he stepped down. But of all of the coaches who got fired, was there a biggest surprise that stuck out to you guys as far as Jeremiah, I think, already has his eyes lit up as far as what his biggest surprise might have been?
I mean, yeah, man. You know what? It wasn't something I expected with Flores. But then as the news started coming out about how dysfunctional it was behind the scenes, it was one of those things where I felt angry. And then I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, right? So it was one of those back and forth. But, so I think that was a big shock. But to me, man, I'll toss right back at you. Like, I did not see Sean Payton stepping away. Didn't see that coming, man.
I wished it was a bad rumor. As a Saints fan, I know for the past decade, every year there's a rumor that Sean Payton's going to go to the Cowboys. Every year there's that rumor. And it doesn't matter how good the Cowboys are. If they won the Super Bowl, there would be rumors that Jerry Jones wants Sean Payton. So I was hoping the Sean Payton might step away. Rumors were also kind of just bad, but it was a little different this time. So caught me by surprise. But Andrew, was there a shocking firing? to you?
I think for me it was Flores. Mike Zimmer, I think, was kind of a little bit. I thought there was a possibility there of him being fired. So, but I would say more Flores. And I was not expecting all the issues that he was having with Chris Greer, the GM. It didn't really make sense to me, but when I heard about that, it made a lot more sense. So.
Well, as much as I want to say, John Gruden was the most shocking. Realistically, I'll go differently. I'll say the Houston Texans, David Culley, that team played hard as hell down the stretch for him. They won some games. They shouldn't have won some of the games in the last month of the season that they won. I mean, realistically, they should have lost so they could have gotten the number 1 draft pick. They played hard for him, and I was shocked that he was kicked out. We'll see what Houston does. They've obviously got a lot of including some names we've talked about like Flores on their interview list. So I was shocked that he got fired so quickly after I thought his team played pretty hard, similar to Dan Campbell in Detroit. Obviously he didn't get fired, but I thought it was the same thing. His team just played so hard for him. You fired your coach last year for a reason, right?
Right. I mean, when Culley, what more could you have really expected from this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's forced into the point of rolling with Davis Mills pretty much the entire season. The offense has just been completely gutted on anything that it was. I mean, they played with heart. It's one of those thankless things, Yeah. That you come in and you take a team who's been struggling and you get their heart behind you. And unless you get set up early on, like Flores did with the Dolphins coming in, where it was understandable, it was like, yeah, we're tanking. Like, that's it. Just gut this thing. It's hard to take through that season. But what more could he have done, man?
No, Bill O'Brien destroyed that franchise. And obviously Deshaun Watson also had his issues that didn't help.
Hearing that name, Bill O'Brien, just makes me cringe, especially that he was on the list of coaches that are being interviewed. I was like, no, please, God.
He used to make me happy when I heard his name because I thought we ripped him off with Tunsil. But looking back at it, okay, I know it's coaching, but seriously, the more I dig into, how has Chris Greer still got a job too? I don't understand. But so Andrew, man, how did you feel? I know we were talking about shocks with it, but look, as a Dolphin fan, I went through the coaching, the college coach experiment, right? We brought Saban in, and Saban was going to save the world. And then he just left us on our ass and rolled out. So how'd the Urban Meyer feel for you?
Oh, it's just a disaster. And I was against the hire too. And I know a lot of people are saying that after the fact, but I remember when the Urban Meyer kind of craze was going on and they were covering him flying into Jacksonville on the private plane. And I didn't want him. I just didn't think he was a good cultural fit. And with all the issues with Ohio State and Florida, and I'm a Gators fan, so I know all about Urban Meyer, and I know how Gators fans feel about Urban Meyer. So I'm just glad it's over at this point. I just hope we find a coach that'll be a good, fit for us, that'll help build the culture and kind of get us back on track, because it's been a while since we've been winning. So I want to get back to winning again.
I mean, man, you got pieces in place. Cincinnati showed you can do it quick, I mean, who knows what Etienne's going to look like when he's healthy and playing,
Yeah. Last week of the season, I mean, beat a team playing for the playoffs. I mean,
yeah, that was a big surprise for me, and that was another coach I forgot to mention that I thought may have been on the hot seat, Frank Reich, after that loss. Everybody was really disappointed with their performance. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maybe he has one more year to kind of make a change and hopefully get into the playoffs. But that was an embarrassing loss.
Well, you may have just answered my next question. The next thing I wanted to ask is, was there a biggest surprise to you of a guy who was not fired?
Yeah. There's two, really. Frank Reich, like I mentioned, and then Pete Carroll. I think he's on the hot seat as well, not gelling well with Russell Wilson and and the team just not playing well the past couple seasons. So it'll be interesting to see, maybe again, like Frank Reich, he's got maybe one more year to turn it around, or he's going to be out.
I'm kind of surprised that that our boy held on in Dallas. I mean, Jerry Jones has got a little bit of a hair trigger every now and then, and with that much talent, they were built to go to the bowl. And dropping out again like that, I'm surprised McCarthy didn't just, wasn't a sacrificial lamb for that.
Well, and I will say with that too, look, the last play of their season was, to me, quite obviously a coaching failure. How a team is not coached in a hurry-up offense to get the ball to the official to spot it. I mean, I still remember I want to say it was 2018, Sean Payton tore Ted Ginn a new you-know-what because he tossed the ball to the wrong official and cost them 5 seconds before they could spike the ball. And Ted Ginn didn't make that mistake again with the Saints. But it's one of those things. It's like that's a coaching thing. And it was actually Dak who took the ball and just put it on the ground instead of throwing it to an official. Mike McCarthy, you're an offensive coach. I mean, he was the Saints offensive coordinator years ago under Jim Haslett. You gotta know those fundamental things.
Hey, so glass half full. I mean, the guy who called that play is on his way for his second interview down in Miami.
I want to touch on some of these offensive coordinators in a little bit. We'll save that.
Yeah.
We'll save that because I think there's a deep discussion to be had. I'll put in my 2 cents with the biggest surprise. Now, I don't want to say fired, but this might be weird or controversial. I don't know why. If Tom Brady is in fact retiring, I have no idea why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers want to keep Bruce Arians as their coach.
Yeah.
They built a mercenary team, and it is the first one in the history of the NFL to have won a Super Bowl. They got a bunch of free agents. It's kind of like the NBA. Hey, a bunch of guys, take a little less money, come play here. We'll win a title. We'll have fun. It never works in the NFL. The Eagles did that with Michael Vick and all those superstars a decade, probably 15 years ago. We're all getting old, right? But it doesn't work in the NFL. You can't just get this mercenary quarterback and Leonard Fournette. Yeah, just throw him on. Oh, LaShawn McCoy, whoever. Just keep adding all these. Le'Veon Bell this year for the Bucs. Antonio Brown. People forget last year the Bucs were 7-5, and people were talking about Bruce Arians was throwing Brady under the bus in the media. Nobody was happy. The Bucs won their last 4 games of the regular season, obviously won their 4 games in the playoffs, which meant a Super Bowl. Everyone forgot the fact that people were saying this was a failed experiment here, and Bruce Arians was kind of the core of the whole thing. Why would you want, if Brady's retiring, I get if he's, the reports are all that he's retiring. So if he comes back, I guess this changes. But why would you want this coach who can't keep locker room chemistry going? He hit one of his players, by the way, in the first round of the playoffs and got fined $50,000 by the NFL, which unheard of to me. Why would you want this guy back as your head coach? He's a geriatric who's going to be retiring in a year or two. You want him overseeing a rebuild? Mm-hmm. He's not going to be there for the payoff. I mean, unless they go and get Aaron Rodgers. So Bruce Arians, if Tom Brady steps down now, and maybe this will happen still, if Tom Brady does retire, the Bucs should ask Bruce Arians to stand down. There is no reason to keep him as their head coach, and instead of firing him, they should let him do the. Now, Sean Payton was completely voluntary, by the way. There was no asking him to step down. They were begging him to stay. The Bucs should do the opposite and beg him to leave so they don't have to fire him, because there is no reason. He's not a good head coach. He's been a great offensive coordinator. He was a great interim head coach. Back in the day for I'm already blanking, but for the Colts, when he had to step in for half of a season, that was great. He was as someone who got to watch Jameis Winston carefully this past season, 2 seasons. Bruce Arians was a disaster for that boy. And Jameis Winston is an NFL quarterback. He really is. He didn't have coaching. He didn't have leadership with Bruce Arians. He's a disaster. The Bucs should get rid of him as soon as they can. Even if Tom Brady comes back, I would argue they should get rid of him. But just for keeping the status quo, if Brady does decide to come back, I can understand it. Otherwise, it's another decision of a million terrible decisions by the Glazers. The Bucs are a poverty franchise. They'll return to be a poverty franchise as soon as Brady retires. Boom.
Well, look, I think Brady's going to hold him hostage, man. He does a show on Sirius XM, and on the Monday Nighter, he literally said today that it is truly day to day. Like, he doesn't know what he's going to do. So welcome to limbo, Tampa.
So who do you see, like, if Arians steps down, do you think Flores would take that job, or do you think if Leftwich doesn't get an opportunity, maybe they just promote him to the head coaching spot?
I would guess. I think Flores is going to get a job, probably. So if this were to happen, I think Flores would already have a job, because I think Brady is kind of holding him hostage, like Jeremiah said. So my hunch would be they'd be the last one in the game. Now, Leftwich seems like an obvious choice, especially since, and we'll talk about it a little more, it seems like he's not maybe as much of a front runner in Jacksonville as we thought. So Leftwich, I think, would be an obvious choice. In the past, they promoted Raheem Morris instead of really going outside to search. So the Glazers kind of do seem to like to promote from within. And I think Leftwich is a good choice. I think that would actually be the best option. If Flores does not get hired, absolutely hire Flores. Also, a caveat to that, if Dennis Allen does not get hired to coach the Saints, you take him as your head coach so he can teach Byron Leftwich why he gets his ass kicked by the Saints twice a year.
I can't see Flores stepping into another rebuild. I mean, I know all of these are rebuilds, because there's a reason that the job's open. But I can't see Flores truly wanting to step back into a situation like he did in Miami again. I think everybody's going to have flashbacks and PTSD from that. I don't think any of them want a part of it.
So do you see him going? Sorry, do you see him going to maybe New Orleans or Minnesota?
I can see Minnesota, but I got to tell you, man, and we'll talk more about it when it gets to the Dolphins. I think the stink of that dysfunction that was in Miami, I think it's following him, and I think it's following the franchise. I will not be shocked if Flores doesn't end up as a head coach somewhere. I really won't. I could see him being put back in a coordinator position again. Maybe I'm off on that, but it all depends on how he handles, the answers to what went wrong.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think, and it'll be, I don't think he'll want to go to Jacksonville for sure because of what's going on right now.
Well, let's go team by team here, and let's scroll through, and then I think we've got some good deeper dives into certain things. Let's start with so 4 teams have already filled their head coaching vacancy. Let's start with the Chicago Bears. They fired Matt Nagy, who made the playoffs a couple times, had an okay record. Not a fun team to watch this year, for sure. They went with Matt Eberflus, the Colts defensive coordinator. Any thoughts? I saw his press conference today. He was talking about playing fast, playing hard. I coach 8U flag football. I give the same speech, so I was not inspired myself, but I don't know.
Oh man, I was kind of underwhelmed, to be honest, by that hire. I don't know what's the big draw there. I mean, they definitely didn't look good against the Jags last game, so it's like I don't know why they went with him. But those are just my 2 cents.
I mean, to me, what threw it off was, you got a lot of offensive guys floating around, and Justin Fields started showing signs of what Justin Fields can be. And I mean, what we saw in college. So I'm kind of surprised that they went to the defensive front, to bring in a head coach who, but then again, maybe He's going to get himself lined up with a nice coordinator and really do this right and let them, flesh out Fields. But I was kind of shocked at that because, I mean, I didn't watch a ton of the Bears games, but it seemed like they stayed close and the defense did okay. The offense just looked anemic all year.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with both of you. This, of the 4 head coaching spots that have been announced, this is the one that I was like, this seems like the worst. The Colts defense was okay. I as Andrew said, they lost to the Jaguars in the last week of the season. No offense to Jacksonville, but I don't think he's a defensive genius.
No.
I think the Bears typically tend to go towards defensive coaches. I mean, it just seems like that's they've always been a defensive football team. But you're right. I thought they would go. Honestly, I thought they would go one of the young offensive geniuses because fix Justin Fields. Here's your shot. You're tied to this quarterback. Make it work, or you both are out. I thought a guy like Leftwich or Bieniemy or someone along those lines, that would be the spot for them. I guess we'll see, but I think if we do this again in 2 years, I'm guessing the Chicago Bears will have another opening.
Look, at Eberflus, it's a lot easier to coach a good defense when your offense is grinding the ball and keeping you off the field for large chunks of the game. When you got Jonathan Taylor just grinding clock and yards, I mean, a fresh defense is a good one to coach,
Yeah, it helps.
you mentioned Bieniemy, and I don't want to derail the conversation too much, but what do you think's going on with him? Because I thought he would have been like a top candidate, but you just don't hear anything about him.
So I've heard one thing, and then I've got my own little personal insight or opinion. Not insight. One thing I've heard is that he does not interview well. I can't vouch for that, obviously, but that's one thing. The other thing, another side note, he has been to 2 Super Bowls in a row, which I also feel like if you're preparing for a Super Bowl, you might not be interviewing as well as possible because you're probably distracted and focused elsewhere. But the bigger takeaway, and I think this is a bigger conversation in general, is so he's been behind Andy Reid, an offensive mastermind. There's no question he's an offensive genius who I believe still generally calls most of the plays in Kansas City. Again, I'm a Saints fan, as someone in the chat pointed out earlier. The Saints were led by an offensive genius for the last 16 years, and his offensive coordinator for the past, I think, 13 years, Pete Carmichael, got interviewed like one time for a head coaching position. So, I don't know if that plays a role in it, but I would be. And I'm not saying that Pete Carmichael, the Saints offensive coordinator, doesn't deserve interviews, although he doesn't seem as interested in them, which is interesting, but good on him, I guess. I would personally always be worried about hiring an offensive coordinator who is behind an offensive genius as a head coach.
Well, and again, man, I mean, how do you carry this success, right? On that offense, you not only have Andy Reid calling plays, but you've got 3 like generational talents between Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Pat Mahomes. I mean, that ain't just going to land on any other team. I mean, it's sure there's some coaching that's involved there, and I get all that, but how much of it's the enemy?
No team that has Patrick Mahomes playing quarterback is hiring a head coach this offseason. Believe it or not. Go figure.
Yeah. But it is interesting, man, because I think last year, though, Andrew, he got tossed around a lot. That was the name that you heard. It was almost like, and I'll step on thin ice with it, but it was almost like he was the Rooney Rule guy last year. I mean, he was the coach that everybody was bringing in and doing those interviews with. But, yeah, I did hear also, Jeff, poor interview. But Yeah.
I do think this conversation actually ties in nicely with the next head coach. So I think we can continue the offensive coordinator behind an offensive genius being hired as a head coach. When we talk about the Denver Broncos hiring Nathaniel Hackett, the Packers offensive coordinator. Okay. Very similar, I will say, to Bieniemy. I mean, Mahomes, Rodgers. I'll give Reed the nod over LaFleur, but again, you're an offensive coordinator with a generational quarterback behind a head coach who's the offensive mastermind. The one thing with the Broncos is I do think they were going for a shift because they had Vic Fangio, who's a defensive mastermind, and he finally got his shot as a head coach. And frankly, he didn't do that terribly. They never broke through. This is an interesting team because Denver is one of the few teams that has those Aaron Rodgers rumors looming, which would make the Nathaniel Hackett hire a lot smarter if that was on the horizon, I suppose. But thoughts on what's going on with Denver?
I mean, I think that makes sense. I think you made a great point there. I mean, it would make sense they both were working together in Green Bay. You know, I have some thoughts on it just because he used to be the OC for the Jaguars and we fired him. So he couldn't get the offense going there under Doug Marrone. So, you know, I don't know how much of a role he played in Green Bay with the play calling. There's been I've seen some kind of debate on Twitter about that. So it'll be interesting. I mean, if they have Rodgers come in, I mean, that's going to be a game changer, I think, for the Broncos. So I think that could really help Denver.
You know, Jeff, you're going to realize that Andrew and I are grizzled old veterans when it comes to coaches. So when you ask me about Nathaniel Hackett, yeah, I remember Nathaniel Hackett when his name was Joe Philbin. Didn't work out well. It didn't happen, right? It didn't work. So you know, maybe if we would have brought Rodgers with him, then it would have. But I think maybe this is a sign of that trying to play chess when people are playing checkers. I mean, it makes sense if you plug him in. You know, even before the season, the rumors were floating around that Rodgers would go to Denver. You know, there's pieces in that offense. You know, Javonte Williams is going to be a hell of a back. I think Gordon's a free agent, but then you look at the wide receivers too. I mean, you've got some guys who can play, you know, so, and then Noah Fant. I mean, you've got pieces on that offense. So it might make sense there, but yeah, I don't know. You know, like you said, when Hackett was coaching in Jacksonville, it wasn't like they were putting up 40, you know, I mean, it's different again, when you look at the pieces that you're playing with.
Yeah. Well, and you know, unlike Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, more like Drew Brees, they can make nobodies as receivers be productive. They don't need a super team around them to be successful. Just saying. Mm-hmm. Moving on. Wait,
you found that out whenever Drew Brees left, right? All of a sudden you were like, I really thought Michael Thomas was a great receiver.
Well, Michael Thomas didn't even play this year.
I know, right?
But yeah, no, you suspected guys would be better, and you know, again, that 9-0 Saints win over the Bucs pretty late in this season, where the Bucs fans' excuse was, well, the greatest quarterback of all time couldn't move the ball because his super team got hurt during the game. It's like, well, Drew Brees is throwing to, like, you know, John Smith and you know, this dude from Trinity College. What are you talking about? You need 3 Pro Bowlers for your quarterback to complete passes? I might be hurting the ratings of my Tampa-based podcast here. New York Giants, and this is a 2-team conversation, I almost think, because we're talking about the Bill Belichick coaching tree here a little bit, but New York Giants, we'll go to them first. They hired Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for the Bills. They fired Joe Judge, who was also a Belichick guy. I know Dable was not most recently working for him, but most of his career he worked for him. I think the New York Giants are the most broken franchise possibly. Maybe the New York Jets.
They're broke. I mean, they really are. Like it's institutional with the Giants. Like it goes deep. Yeah. So, this Dable thing means a whole lot to me, and I hate it. But you guys see it, and I bleed it with Miami. There's just so much that goes into it. For me, I worry, was this a true indictment on what the people around the league think? I mean, Dable was, Tua's offensive coordinator his freshman year in Alabama. Dable's been around the Miami Dolphins franchise before. He was interviewing for the job. And nobody says he got it offered to him. So I understand, take the job that's in front of you instead of waiting for the one that might come. Personally, I always liked Dable when he was around Miami before. I'd love to see Joe Judge go down because that was the cockiest dude to survive Black Monday. He was just like, yeah, I'm here. Nobody's taking me out. Wednesday.
I learned so much.
Right. So I mean, I like it. Go offensive if your pieces are healthy. Again, maybe there's something there. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Andrew, with Dable?
I like the hire. I like what he did over in Buffalo with Josh Allen and that offense, and gave it a lot of spark. So I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I think there's still some pieces there that need to come together in terms of the quarterback situation. What are they going to do about Daniel Jones? Right? He's not really the piece there at quarterback. So I feel like they'll likely draft somebody to replace him, or they'll maybe go to free agency, or. But I think he can. I think he can change that franchise, or at least point them in the right direction.
That's interesting because I thought the key was whoever's doing these interviews, and they were really bad a couple of years ago when they hired Joe Judge, in my humble opinion. It was going to be how they felt about Daniel Jones. Like, if the one thing that I have to shout out a guy from another news source, Nick Underhill, who runs NewOrleans.football. He was talking about, you interview guys half the time just to pick their brain. You can get the smartest head coaching candidates in the world to come in and tell you what their 5-year plan would be with your program. So part of me wonders, were they interviewing guys with the hope that, how are you going to fix Daniel Jones so we don't have to draft a quarterback? We can use our draft capital on all of the other holes we have. They got a running back, assuming they can keep him healthy, and Saquon Barkley. To me, I looked at their wide receiver core all year, and I said, gosh, I'm jealous as a Saints fan. They did nothing, though. So I am curious if the interview was, we're going with rookie quarterback, we'll trade Daniel Jones for a 3rd round pick and move on, or whether it was, I'm gonna fix him. I mean, he's only played 2 years, and he's shown some flashes.
Look, maybe, I promise you, I don't think this was a dream. I mentioned you guys earlier, I've been traveling a lot, but I swear I saw this. It was either the GM or the owner flat out planted their flag as hard as anybody's ever planted it on a quarterback with Daniel Jones. He was like, we're not talking about Daniel Jones. We failed that kid. We've given him multiple OCs, no line, there's injuries. Like, we've done this kid wrong. Like, what NFL franchise says that? I'll tell you, we didn't in Miami again. When they talked about Tua, we're like, he's the quarterback. I mean, they planted it hard and said, Daniel's our guy. We let him down. Now we need to fix it.
And it was the owner, but does Dable think that Daniel Jones can get hit as many times as Josh Allen has and still get up? Because, to be quite honest, I love Josh Allen. He runs way too much and takes way too many hits.
Yeah. Yeah.
My team has started Taysom Hill in 7 games. He's basically a fullback who's played quarterback. And it's like, he doesn't take those hits. Why is Josh Allen taking those hits? That dude's a quarterback.
Well, I tell you, and I mean, Josh Allen, of course, has a much better pocket presence and is a much better throwing quarterback. But Cam Newton, his first couple of years in the league, he got all giddy and just ran out and put a shoulder down with everybody. And you look at the broken Cam Newton that you have now, I mean, that's your future, Josh Allen. I mean, somebody's got to keep that kid in the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the same issue kind of way back in the mid '90s with Mark Brunell. He used to run around a lot, and then I think he hurt one of his knees, and he was I think he got used to sliding after that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Brunell was a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
So the next one I want to talk about is this one was surprising. This was today. The Las Vegas Raiders went with Josh McDaniels, who a couple years ago he had the Colts job and he then just backed out of it and said, "No, I'm changed my mind. I'm staying in New England." So I always thought he was just waiting for Belichick to retire and take the New England job, but maybe he knows that Belichick's still not all that close to retiring, or maybe he knew Andrew Luck was not fully healthy, and that's why he turned down the Indianapolis job. This is a very intriguing position because the Raiders are a playoff team that were this close to tying the Bengals late in the game. The Bengals going to the Super Bowl. Raiders don't seem like they're miles away from being a competitive team in the league. Josh McDaniels, do you think he can take them to the next level? What are your thoughts?
I think McDaniels, look, hats off. I mean, the Raiders coach obviously did a great job stepping in the interim, right? I can't think of a guy's name right now. But what I learned out of this whole season was Derek Carr is a hell of a leader, way more than I ever thought he was. I think Derek Carr solidified that entire room, that entire locker room. I think they kind of played above their heads, so it's going to be a little odd. I mean, there's pieces, but talent's still missing. And you know what, Josh McDaniels, I think he's going to have a much better run here. I mean, all in all, it wasn't horrible when he was in Denver before, right? I mean, he did all right. Did he win a playoff game? Did he have the Tebow?
That was Tebow, yeah.
Yeah, that was Tebow knocking out the Steelers. So, I think McDaniels was brash when he first took that job in Denver. He was that young kid, and he was going to rule the world. I think maybe taking a step back and then this second run. I mean, I think he can be a good fit for what that franchise seems like it is.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think I think the interim coach, Rich Bisaccia, I think his name is, he did a great job for being in the situation that he was in with the whole John Gruden mess. But I think McDaniels is definitely coming into a good situation in terms of the roster. I mean, Derek Carr has definitely proved himself to be, a good quarterback, and with them making the playoffs, he can make plays. So I think, yeah, and then McDaniels just learning under Bill Belichick, I think he's really going to help Derek Carr, go to the next level.
Yeah, I think the Raiders. We'll talk about this at the end. Is the teams with the new coaches with the best chances of making a deep playoff run. I don't know that I'm going to say the Raiders, but the Raiders are the only team in this list that were a playoff team, and they've got a quarterback who he takes a lot of heat that I think sometimes is unwarranted. Nobody's asking him to be the best quarterback in the NFL, but I think he's a top 10 quarterback. And offensively, and this is why I kind of like they went offensive, is Josh Jacobs, by the way, didn't get the ball enough. He's never gotten the ball enough. Tremendous running back. Hunter Renfrow is an amazing receiver. I can't say enough. Just watching him, his fundamentals are so perfect. And Darren Waller is one of those generational weapons at tight end. So I think the Raiders have a bright future, frankly. I mean, so I think that's a good coach for them. And I'll be honest, Bisaccia, special teams coach, in their playoff game, they had Peyton Barber jump and catch a ball inbounds and land out of bounds and pin them back inside like the 5-yard line on a kickoff. That's coaching fundamentals again. You have to step out of bounds and then touch the ball. Come on. He's a special teams coach. I can't stand it. And Drew Brees was doing color commentary for that game. So he said, every year we ran a drill where you made sure your foot was out of bounds before you touched that ball and you got the ball at the 40. How does a special teams coordinator not make sure that his team is not on their P's and Q's in the playoffs. Little pet peeve.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Watch my 8U flag football team fumble 3 snaps this next Saturday, and then you can insult me on a podcast, and I deserve it. All right, so now we're into the openings. Let's start things with Houston. Houston, the team that I was most surprised that they fired Cully. Their interviews, they've even got they've got 3 second interviews. So I think they're probably the 3 front runners. Brian Flores, we've talked about him a couple times. Jonathan Gannon, who's the Eagles defensive coordinator, and Kevin O'Connell, the Rams offensive coordinator. They've all interviewed 3 times. And actually Josh McCown, who has not coached, I don't believe, at any level. He's a recently retired NFL quarterback. I actually believe he's interviewed for the second time for that job. They did 1 interview with Hines Ward, which is an interesting coach, and Joe Lombardi, the Chargers offensive coordinator, who used to be with the Saints for a long time. So it sounds like they're down to probably 4 guys: Flores, Gannon, McCown, and O'Connell. I know which one seems to scream the one who would be the best coach, and also is rumored to have a good relationship with Deshaun Watson. But what do you guys think?
I mean, from what I hear, though, it kind of bounced around. Deshaun Watson, it goes deeper than just the head coach. Like, if he's playing, he wants out of Houston. Because otherwise you look at that. Flores was the guy banging the drum really hard to bring Watson in. And why wouldn't he? I mean, I can't fault anybody for that. I mean, I can't believe there weren't more coaches banging the drum for Watson. I mean, I'm just saying, he's a top 5 guy. But I think ultimately here, I think O'Connell is going to end up getting the fit. I think he's going to come in. It's going to be another one of those. It seems like every year, man, there's a hot offensive coordinator somewhere in there that becomes the next guy to plug. And if you're going to decide to hitch your wagon to Davis Mills, who actually did not play bad, man. I mean,
right,
to be what he was as a rookie quarterback. I think O'Connell's a fit. Although I would have loved it if it was Hines Ward, just because. I'd love to see Hines coach.
They get some credit for going outside of the box with a couple guys who, I mean, Hines Ward is a special assistant to the head coach at Florida Atlantic. So basically no coaching experience. And Josh McCown, who's had 2 interviews, they're maybe trying to be creative. What do you think, Andrew? This is a division rival.
Yeah, I think O'Connell could be another candidate. I know he's a possible, actually, recently announced candidate for the Jaguars. I think they just can't interview him yet because of the Super Bowl. But I could see him maybe going there. Another guy I thought, I'm not surprised they're targeting, is Jim Caldwell. I could see him maybe taking that opportunity, bringing a lot of experience into that organization, just with what he did over in Indianapolis and Baltimore and Detroit, and turned around Detroit, into a good football team. So Houston, he may be a good fit for Houston. But Flores, like you said, I think the Deshaun Watson situation, maybe he doesn't take that. He doesn't take that job. Maybe he takes the Minnesota job. But I could see either O'Connell, maybe surprisingly, maybe Caldwell takes a look.
Yeah. Hey, Jeremiah, do you see what's over my shoulder here? Oh, wrong way. There we go.
Yeah, I see that Dolphin helmet over there.
Dolphin helmet, yeah. And this is what I had to go get. See, I got that. I got
Nice.
this ready to go too.
Nice.
Brunel jersey. So I'm representing Florida sports, just not the team that plays closest to me.
Look, when you put the Dolphins and Brunel together, it gives me bad feelings of Dan's last game and 62 points or something like that.
Hey,
that's horrible.
I'll let you know. Mark Brunel got his only Super Bowl ring with what team?
New Orleans.
The New Orleans Saints.
Can't even point.
So where are you thinking, Jeff? What do you think goes on in Houston?
Yeah, to me, I think Brian Flores makes the most sense, but I do think going with one of here's the thing. it depends on whether they think Deshaun Watson's going to beat the legal stuff and is going to get back on the field for Houston, because Flores then becomes the obvious slam dunk choice. If not, I also think Davis Mills was one of the most, I'm trying to think, maybe the most impressive rookie quarterback last season. I mean,
you can make that argument.
He really, he had Brandon Cooks, who's a speedster. He's a one-dimensional receiver. He didn't have a lot of talent with him on offense, and he really developed. You saw him grow throughout the season from being just a guy with the long neck who was, funny to laugh at, like Jeffrey the Giraffe from Toys R Us, to actually being a quarterback that could make some competitive throws. So I think in that regard, some of these offensive, it makes sense that they'd interview some of these offensive guys. I don't know what they think is going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And that's, I guess that's always the question, is same as what I said with the Giants, is what's their thoughts on Daniel Jones? Because that can give me a lot more insight into what you're looking at with the coach.
So here's how I see this, right? I think at some point Houston has to become the scorned girlfriend, that regardless of Watson's being able to play, if he's being able to play, that's just them hitting the lotto. It's one of the reasons I feel like O'Connell, Andrew, I like the idea of Jim Caldwell. But, I mean, if you're Houston right now, if Watson's cleared, you're looking at 3 first-rounders, okay? You're a bad team, but you've got good draft picks this year. You're going to have Davis Mills, who's doing okay. You're bringing another 3 first-rounders behind it. That's a young coach rebuild sort of thing. And I think, obviously, that's why I say I don't think Flores wants to dip his toe back in that. But if there's a chance Watson stays, then yeah. Outside of that, I mean, Houston can really – God, man, if Cincinnati has done anything, I think, Andrew, for you, for me, and now even you, Jeff, it's got to give us a little bit of hope that a rebuild can happen pretty quickly if you do things the right way. I mean, since he was a laughing stock 4 years ago, and now they're not only in the Super Bowl, but they got a young core of people who, it could be a changing of the guard in that AFC North. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think Watson plays another snap there. I think they end up just pawning him for picks and see what you can do with it from there.
Yeah, and I interestingly enough, Joe Burrow blowing his ACL out and them getting a top pick for Jamar Chase, they've been a blessing in disguise last year. Seems like he's worked out well. So the next team I want to talk about, Andrew might have something to say about this team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who dismissed the worst coaching hire in the last 2-3 years. At least, Urban Meyer. I think everyone knew that was going to fail. Sorry.
No, even Bobby Petrino had more wins than Urban Meyer, right?
Yes, but at least Urban Meyer got fired, respectively, instead of just leaving notes telling his team he was going to coach college football. Right? Is that something? I don't know.
I don't know. Getting fired for kicking your kicker and all the rest of the laundry list of things. I mean, it's just it's been interesting in Jacksonville. I'll leave it at that.
Look, Andrew, before you get into your coaches coming in there, I will always say Urban Meyer now has my favorite. I don't know if the story's true, but I want to believe it is, of him in a meeting with all of his coaches talking about, I've won national championships. What have you guys won? Like, that to me is the most class. I mean, like, when you're comparing that in your NFL coaching room, I'm the only winner in here. Like, oh Jesus!
I mean, it's been a total clown show this year. That's all I can say. Just a total, and no pun intended with the whole clown out movement. But yeah, when you're telling your own coaches that I have the greatest resume in the room, and you guys are a bunch of losers, that doesn't work out too well, Jeff.
He also does well picking up chicks at bars when he lets the team travel without him.
Not going back on the team flight. That's like Never happened.
That's not that I'm an insider, but I had so many people. I don't even want to call them insiders. Just like that does not happen ever. The head coach never is like, "Hey, you guys go without me. I'm gonna see if some co-eds are hanging around and want to grind up on me."
Hey, look, what does that say about the institution of college football, though? Because that couldn't have been Urban Meyer's first time doing any of that. But in Ohio State, that shit don't make the paper. You're like, no. Like NFL, it's blasted on ESPN.
There's some rumors I don't want to talk about from people I know that went to Florida and Ohio State and told me about it. Urban Meyer. I'm not going to say that on a podcast because
yeah.
I mean, there's the FCC,
Yeah.
He's not a nice guy, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the trail of events with this guy, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, he ruins our best kicker. Like, he benches our best running back who had 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable to me. Just the stories that came out this season of, and then of course the viral video, of course. I
mean, I was a little jealous, but what are we gonna do? So the Jaguars have interviewed a plethora of coaches. I'll just read down the list, and this has probably changed by like adding 6 coaches in the last hour that we've been talking. We got Darrell Bevel, who was obviously the interim coach. Rich Bisaccia, who was the Raiders' interim coach. Todd Bowles. Jim Caldwell. A couple guys who were already hired. Byron Leftwich, who was rumored to be the heavy favorite like a week ago, and that seems to kind of disappear. Kellen Moore. Stupid decision. Bill O'Brien. Kevin O'Connell. Doug Peterson. And he is actually going back for a second interview. This is a recent development. They've interviewed a lot of guys. Andrew, you know the Jags more than both of us.
I feel like at this point, it's just like watching this unfold. It's been draining, to say the least. I'm just like, come on, guys, like, make a decision. Let's go. I was a little upset about the whole Leftwich, Adrian Wilson thing. So we'll see what happens there. But I like Caldwell. I wish they'd bring him back in for another interview. Like I said, I think he'd be a great fit. Wouldn't be against Doug Peterson, maybe getting the spot, or Rich Bisaccia. But with Kevin O'Connell, he's kind of, they're saying that he's favored now because of his relationship with Trent Baalke. I guess I'm not sure. I think they might have coached together, or he may have been, or not coached together. Excuse me, but they may have been. I think he was over in San Francisco.
Yeah.
When Trent was over there. So we'll see what happens. I know a lot of Jags fans are really frustrated right now, including myself. But it's like day by day. It may be a week from now, it may be a month from now. Who knows?
Yeah,
it'll happen.
Just for nostalgic purposes, I would have loved, or still would love to see Leftwich. But I think that would have been a great, or could be. I keep saying would have, but maybe Byron Leftwich ending up there. You mentioned Peterson. I think Peterson's a really nice fit. I'm just outside of Philly, so I hear more about Peterson than I should in that Super Bowl run. I mean, he seems to fit the kind of the personnel that you have there already, and so I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. Peterson, he had a great little Super Bowl run there. I like Leftwich, like you said. I mean, I think he's going to bring a lot of energy to the team and to Jacksonville. People would like him to return. He was an ex-quarterback for the Jaguars, so that would be nice. My only concern about Leftwich, and it's just he just doesn't have as much experience at the head coaching spot. So it is a big jump for him. I think he would be able to handle it, but there's still a learning curve. And him being an offensive coordinator, I just kind of wonder, would he still want to juggle play calling responsibilities and still have to learn kind of all that stuff with the head coaching that comes with the head coaching spot. So, would he be overwhelmed? Who knows? But that's why I kind of like Caldwell as my top choice, just because of the experience.
So, question, Andrew, because I'm kind of running through this with Miami too. Like, I mean, not every head coach, but a lot of head coaching candidates, when they come in, they kind of bring their own people, right? You got any coordinators in Jacksonville that you're hoping, withstand the next hire? I mean, anybody worth keeping around there that you're thinking may have a chance to do that? Or you think the new guy just cleans house and starts over?
I think the new guy cleans house, and it would start with a clean slate. The only guy I could see that would really have a chance, I think, at staying would be Cullen, the defensive coordinator, because I do think the defense progressed. I mean, obviously in that Indy game, the defense looked great. We looked pretty decent against Buffalo. So I think Cullen may have a shot. But I think there'll be a new staff for sure that comes in, but we'll see what happens.
This was one spot, given the young quarterback situation. I thought Eric Bieniemy, and now that the Chiefs are out, this was one spot where I'm like, that kind of makes sense. I feel like Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence's skill sets are kind of similar. They both more mobile than maybe people think. They got great arms. I will see. Eric Bieniemy has not been the hot guy on the market this year, but again, I still think he got hurt by going to the playoff, the Super Bowl the last couple of years, and most all of these vacancies we're talking about are going to be filled before next Sunday. Well, no, 2 Sundays from now when the Super Bowl is played. So I don't know. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen him get interviewed there, because again, I do think the Jaguars have one advantage of having potential generational quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I mean, I think if we can make a change at the GM spot with Trent Baalke and kind of start with a clean slate there in the front office, that'll help. But I think if we continue to have a lackluster, free agency and draft, and I could go into it for a real long time on all the mistakes with Trent Baalke and Gardner Minshew trade and all that stuff, but I'll spare you. But I think if that continues for this year or for this upcoming season, Trevor may be requesting a trade. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll take him into New Orleans. Anyways, so the next spot we're going to talk about also happens to be in the Sunshine State. Miami Dolphins, who I think we all agreed was one of the more surprising coaching vacancies this offseason. It looks like from what I've seen as far as reports, now they've done a bunch of interviews, including Gable, who obviously got hired away. But according to reports, it seems like they've narrowed it down to 2 people. Mike McDaniel, the 49ers offensive coordinator, seems to be the favorite. And Kellen Moore, the Cowboys offensive coordinator. Maybe Jeremiah, maybe you've heard other things. Those seem like the 2 worst options for head coaching candidates we've talked about all day. So why is your franchise going to fall into poverty?
I mean, I'm telling you again, I really do think that the stink of this whole thing hitting the way it did with Flores, because what coach with head coaching experience or any kind of experience leading wants to come into an organization where they know that the owner and the GM are so tight with each other and held that you've got to come in and be a part of that triad. You know what I'm saying? Because that's mainly where Flores had the falling out. He and Greer didn't see eye to eye, and basically Ross chose Greer.
Can I go real quick? Can I say, was that – so I want to clarify that from outsiders. Was it because Flores did not like Tua at quarterback, and they did? Is that the falling out, or vice versa?
That was part of it, but it went deeper than that. I think it really went deeper than that. But that was a big part. I mean, it still says underneath, and I'm waiting on the reports to come out, that, Flores was against the Tua pick from the beginning. And you could see it actually now looking back, right? The way he handled him with Fitzpatrick. You kind of felt like he was forced to get Tua in that first year, and he did, but he was quick to yank him, right? And then he didn't really, feel like Tua was the guy. But also, man, Flores was a guy, and that's why I say the stink follows both, right? On the Dolphins, you've got who wants to come into this situation, right, and deal with this. And then on the Flores side, you got a guy who was so stuck in his way that he was doing, where multiple people basically said, like, we knew we were getting a Belichick disciple, but he was more Belichick than we thought. Like, he didn't know how to talk to people, right? Whether it be behind the scenes or the players. He was very much to the point, stuck to his point. I mean, the report that came out that basically said ever since Thanksgiving, he stopped, even communicating with the coordinators and the position coaches. They had no idea what was going on. They show up at practice and they're like, here's what we're doing. Like, he just literally silenced it. So the whole dysfunction around it. And it's not just this, it's been ongoing. For me, you said it, man. I think it's the worst two candidates, but I also think it's guys who are looking to get their first shot at being a head coach. And that really sucks for me as a Dolphins fan, because the team that was doing as well as it was, bringing in a guy like Leslie Frazier, who's done this before. I'm disappointed that Jim Caldwell's name didn't come up. Originally when Flores was hired, Caldwell was going to be like a special assistant, and then he had some health things and passed off to the side. There's still a little bit of the rumor rolling around about Harbaugh. Ross has loved Harbaugh for forever. I thought it was really weird that Ross said, like, I won't take him away from Michigan. Like, your alma mater? Like, what? This is your organization, right? Like, but you're protecting your college alma. That's the weirdest fraternity crap I've ever heard in my life.
Stephen Ross is a bad owner.
He really is. But
can we say that?
He tries really hard. Like, I mean, dude, he spends money in the worst possible ways, but he spends money. He's not afraid to write a check. But I don't understand what he doesn't get. We've done this, man. Since Jimmy Johnson left, look at our coaches. Wanstead, Sperano, Philbin, Gase. We keep bringing in guys that have no head coaching experience. And then the bigger part of having no head coaching experience, really what I found out, especially with Flores, who are your coordinators? Who are your connections? Flores could never get a coordinator. I mean, we went with dual offensive coordinators this year, promoted from the inside. You had guys leaving to take the same position coaching job with another team. Like they just left to be a wide receiver coach here to go there. So I would love to see somebody come into this where hopefully we could keep Josh Boyer, so that the defense stays sort of in the lane that they need to be in, because I think it's talented. But I would love to see somebody who has a coaching tree, somebody who could come in and literally have an offensive coordinator set up and do this the right way and has experience. I'm not excited about either one of those. I feel like, but I also feel like we're kind of tying ourselves to Tua as well. I feel like a guy like Harbaugh might be able to come in, or a Caldwell or a Frazier, and kind of say, make the play for Watson. I mean, somebody with a little more weight might be able to come in and do that. But a first-year coach is going to come in and be tied to Tua again and rinse and repeat, man.
Andrew, have you seen Tua play?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's all right. I mean, I think he's still has potential. I mean,
another A word, awful.
You think you still have to give him. I think you still have to give him a little time. But I didn't know that actually, that Flores really had that bad of a rapport with his coordinators, and that he's just kind of showing up to practice with his own game plan. And so that, I guess maybe he goes down a little in my book for Like, because for me, it was really Flores and Caldwell. But now hearing that's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it came out hard that it literally got that they just couldn't communicate with each other. And even to the point where I think like there wasn't really a plan to let Flores go, but him and Ross came together and kind of like had that come to Jesus meeting where Ross is like, okay, we've got to communicate better. We've got to do this. And Flores just kind of stuck to his guns like, ain't happening. And so what do? As an owner, you're backed into a corner. You got to make a move.
So two things stick out to me. One is you got to let your college alma mater hire a new coach and go after Jim Harbaugh. One. Two is it's weird we're talking about this kind of dysfunction. There are 3 teams, which is kind of weird. There are 3 teams on this list that had winning records, and the Dolphins are one of them.
Mm-hmm.
We finished 9-8. Like that, that's not far. Obviously, it's not far from a playoff spot. It's 1 game away. I think the Bengals. What weren't they 10-7? They're in the Super Bowl, right? So it's like there's a lot of dysfunction. So I do think there's a lot of talent, but not a quarterback. And they got to get a head coach, right?
The defensive side of the ball is so stocked. And if I'm going to give Greer the pass on that, I mean, you already brought in Xavier Howard, Byron Jones to lock down at the corners. You drafted, Brandon Jones, and then Javon Holland, who was a huge hit. Bring in Phillips on the other end. The defensive line with Agba. I mean, the defense is put together in a way that it's going to help you compete, right? And I think the 2 offensive coordinators did the best they could to try to hide Tua's flaws. But, you shouldn't be building a game plan trying to avoid, you know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be that much. You should have a little bit of faith in your quarterback. And when Tua tried to push it down the field, he made bad decisions. I mean, yeah, he had a great, completion percentage, but he was throwing 5-yard outs.
He's got a Danny Werfel arm.
Yeah, it's not there. It's not there. The deep arm's not there.
Right? I mean, as a Saints fan, Gators fan, we all can. Danny Werfel, he didn't have an NFL arm. It worked in college when you can scheme guys wide open. It doesn't work in the NFL, and I feel like Tua's got that same – he doesn't have the arm strength.
So, Jeff, you heard it more from me than most, but, Andrew, I'll say it on record with you. Here's the deal. I think Tua is a phenomenal human being. I think he is a great dude. I think he tries to put in the work. I think he says all the right things, and he handles it the way that he should. He just seems like Tebow-esque good, Nobody was saying Tebow's a great football player, but you're like, that's a good human. Tua seems that way. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with him. It's just not going to happen. And I think they are kind of stuck to where they want to plant their flag on that. That was kind of what they were saying, that whoever came in had to be ready to work with Tua. So that kind of shocked me that Dable, goes the other direction.
Oh,
it's kind of hard to believe too. Didn't Flores get Coach of the Year like a season ago or a year ago?
He should have.
Okay.
But
he was up for it maybe.
Yeah, you know what? And look, Flores is the only guy who messed up tanking. Had we tanked the way that we were tanking for Tua, we would have got Joe Burrow. But look, I can't play. You talk about front office things, Andrew. When I sit back and look at this, man, with the Dolphins stockpile of picks that they had, put Burrow away. He was gone. We could have had Herbert. We passed on Jonathan Taylor. We passed on CD Lamb. Like the team that was there. Oh, I love this picture. This picture of Harbaugh wearing his Dolphin stuff. If he's ready to return to the NFL, then you got to be in it.
Well, but do you see the team? This is the next team we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
Minnesota Vikings, who I have seen. They did an interview with him, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Harbaugh, Miami Dolphins owner, might be sleeping at the wheel. Maybe
it wouldn't be the first time, brother. But literally, if Harbaugh goes anywhere else in the NFL, then that is the absolute stamp of the indictment that everyone believes Miami is a cesspool that can't be fixed.
By the way, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, where he had, I believe he's interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw this today. And the Vikings have interviewed Todd Bowles, the Bucs D coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles coordinator, Patrick Graham, the Giants D coordinator. No clue why they'd interview him. Kellen Moore, Raheem Morris, who they've asked for a second interview. That's an interesting choice that we probably don't need to get into, but Raheem Morris is an interesting one. Kevin O'Connell has had a second interview, and D'Amico Ryans, the Niners defensive coordinator. Here we go. Tom Pelissero is reporting the Vikings plan to fly in Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh for an interview on Wednesday, which I believe is 2 days from now.
2 days.
The Vikings seem to be taking the steps. And by the way, let me say with the Vikings, they got Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. Kirk Cousins is I feel like he's in the Derek Carr category as quarterbacks, right? Like, he's not the best quarterback, but he's still a very adequate quarterback to win a championship. Jimmy Garoppolo's led his team to the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship in 2 of the last 3 seasons, and people want to crucify that guy. Kirk Cousins is better than him. And D'Amico Ryans, look at Isaac. Isaac, the founder of FL Teams, giving us the news
all
update.
over it.
Well, we can't be checking the news. We're on the podcast, but I like this. D'Amico Ryans declined the second interview with the Vikings, opting to further his development in San Francisco. So the Vikings basically are down to Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris, Patrick Graham, Jim Harbaugh. I think there's an obvious first choice in that list, isn't there? Does anyone not think that Jim Harbaugh would be the best hire for this team?
100. It's a little odd to me. You see all these names floating around there because I got to tell you, the one team with an opening where I did think Flores would be a fit would be in Minnesota. But Flores isn't on that list at all. They didn't even call him in. So a team that's competing and with talent around it wants nothing to do with him.
Yeah, that is interesting that they didn't. But I think you're right, Jeremiah, that there may be some stink with for lack of a better word, for Flores and kind of what went down in Miami. But I think Harbaugh, yeah, is the obvious choice.
I mean, Minnesota's set up pretty, man. Let's really take that little 2 or 3 year walk down we're talking about. Look at the NFC North. Okay, the Bears are in constant just dishevel, right? The Packers are gonna lose Devontae and Aaron. So when Devontae and Adams and Aaron Rodgers are gone, I mean, yeah, Dan Campbell has the the little Lions playing their hearts out, but Minnesota's talented enough that they can destroy that division and win it easily for the next couple of years if everything goes that way.
Oh yeah, if Rodgers is gone, they've got the clear talent advantage. But there is Isaac is pulling up another tweet here. There's some chatter that Jim Harbaugh is using the Vikings as a way to get an offer from the Dolphins, or even that Minnesota's owners are helping Miami get Harbaugh so the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross can avoid massive backlash from Michigan. I think that's a high-strung conspiracy theory, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's next level. That's next level. But hey, Stephen Ross does have like that evil genius type money that he might have a lair in a volcano somewhere.
he wants to avoid his reputation being ruined that badly in Ann Arbor that he's going to just use another team to shield him.
Am I the only one that it feels like he's like the dude that's still wearing his leather jacket from high school? Like, yeah, support that. Like, dude, you're a billionaire.
You're
now.
A billionaire.
Like Michigan's like, what happened? Yeah, you went to college there. We get it. Put the class ring away, dude.
Right. Yeah,
I don't know.
It could be a whole deeper philosophical conversation, I suppose.
But I think Minnesota's a great opportunity, man. I really do.
They've got talent. I mean, that's for sure. And here's another one. Jim Harbaugh is either using NFL interview as leverage to get a lucrative extension from Michigan, or Stephen Ross is using the Vikings to say he didn't steal Harbaugh away from Michigan. So I think the bottom line here is he's going to end up at Michigan, right?
Most likely.
If they're the red herring, they're definitely the ones who are actually worth.
But look, we were just talking about the Andrew and Urban Meyer, right? If you really are coaching at one of these huge colleges and you're making that kind of money with what's the draw to the NFL, man? What's the lure? I mean,
yeah, why would you want to leave when you have it made? Made.
It's an interesting. I mean, this could be a whole nother podcast, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, one thing I always say, the greatest what if in modern day sports to me is, what if the Dolphins had not rejected Drew Brees and Nick Saban got him? Nick Saban wouldn't have coached Alabama. He would be winning Super Bowls in Miami. Sorry, Jeremiah.
No. Hey, look, there's so many of those moments in Miami. Now you're bursting off on the alternate timelines like we're in the Flash here. It's like, what would have happened?
We're going Loki Disney Plus series. We're venturing into alternate timelines. Last opening.
Who do we think goes to Minnesota then? I mean,
I think Jim Harbaugh now.
Yeah, I think Jim Harbaugh as well. I mean, that roster is just really good. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson, like you said, Dalvin Cook, some Thielen.
And hey, Harbaugh can make the most out of a weak-armed quarterback. I mean, he lasted how many years in the league? Harbaugh knows how to play in the NFL without a rifle. I think him and Kirk Cousins could get along.
Isaac is fast and furious running. There's a lot of rumors about the Vikings hiring Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It makes sense.
You might listen to this podcast and it might be old content at this point.
Again, it makes sense. I mean, if you are coming back out of college, you don't want to go to one of these rebuild situations. Come in with a cupboards full.
Exactly.
So the last opening, this might be the one where I'm supposed to talk the most, I think. The New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton stepped down. Unfortunately, he's not retiring, so it's fairly certain he'll be coaching again another team in the near future. However, the Saints, by the way, if the Rams had beaten the 49ers in the last game of the regular season, would have been in the playoffs. The Rams finally decided to beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. So, I'll leave my expletives for another podcast. But obviously, this one was kind of surprising because the Saints defense obviously is clicking at a high level. Before I go on a rampage here, do you guys have thoughts as to – so their interviews thus far reported, Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores got interviewed, Aaron Glenn, who was their secondary coach for a few years, he went with Dan Campbell, who was on the Saints staff. He went with Dan Campbell to be the Lions defensive coordinator. Byron Leftwich, obviously the Bucs offensive coordinator. Doug Peterson got interviewed yesterday. He is a Sean Payton golfing buddy. And Darren Rizzi, the Saints special teams coordinator, is going to be interviewed this week as well. I have an obvious front runner, but what do you guys think?
I think it could be, I mean, for me, it could be split between Peterson and Leftwich. I would think they would go maybe for Peterson first because he's got the Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl, but I could see Byron Leftwich and Adrian Wilson maybe they just bring on Byron Leftwich.
I gotta think. I like Dennis Allen or Peterson. New Orleans, to me, just seems like an organization that kind of does this right. They're going to bring in somebody with experience. I don't see it being brand new. I think somebody that has some head coaching experience is kind of what they want to step into. You'll know better, but I mean, what is Michael Thomas's future? I mean, is he coming back or is he not, or what's the deal?
Well, so a weird thing with Michael Thomas. He got hurt in week 1 of 2020 against the Bucks. The Saints won that game by 13 or 18 points. And he got late in the fourth quarter, he got his ankle rolled up on something nasty. And he went on injured reserve for a few weeks. And then he got in a fight with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr., that guy who gets in a fight with everyone. Love that guy. Got in a fight with him in practice and sucker punched him, got suspended. He came back for a handful of games. Now, Taysom Hill played quarterback because Drew Brees broke all his ribs, almost literally all his ribs. And Taysom Hill came in. Michael Thomas, 2 out of 3 games, had 100-yard games, and then they said his ankle's not working. It's like, well, it seemed to work okay. He got over 100 yards 2 of the last 3 games. He went on IR again and said he'd come back in the playoffs, had a good game in the first round of the playoffs against the Bears, got a touchdown, led the team in yards and all that. Got nothing against the Bucks, and was immediately said he should have had surgery way back in the middle of the season. He only played to try to get Drew Brees another title. So he was playing real hampered. And then apparently he had the option to rehab or get surgery, and the team and him lost all communication in the offseason. So he showed up to training camp and his ankle was still messed up, and he didn't have the surgery, which the team assumed he had. So he had to have the surgery then, and he was going to miss half the season. Then apparently they actually botched the surgery, and he had to have another surgery to fix it again. So an injury from week 1 of 2020 kept him out of half that year and the entire next season. Let's not forget, he was the best NFL receiver in 2019 and 2018. He was the number 1 receiver in the NFL for 2 years. And he was good 2 years before that too. But he's missed almost 2 years in a row because of an ankle sprain, which is incredibly frustrating. And a lot of people wonder if there might be some anger between the two sides. Regardless, the Saints need to recharge at wide receiver. Even if he is coming back, they need to add more talent. They don't have a quarterback at the moment. Jameis Winston's a free agent. Taysom Hill's on the team. He's 7-2 as a starter, but as much as I love the guy, I don't think most people want him to be the guy. Aaron Rodgers, midway through the season, was the Vegas favorite to be the Saints quarterback in 2022. Aaron Rodgers was the Vegas favorite. Russell Wilson was the second. Jameis Winston was the third. Taysom Hill was the fourth. So it's like not a bad list of guys if that's your 1 through 4. Again, even your fourth is 7-2 as a starter in the NFL. That works. So Michael Thomas, going back to that, nobody really knows. He's a question mark, and he's one of the reasons that I also think Dennis Allen should be the guy. When Sean Payton had COVID and they played the Bucks and Tom Brady and everyone, including myself, picked the Bucks to win that game, Saints won 9-0. Dennis Allen was the head coach, defensive coordinator. Pete Carmichael called the plays. Taysom Hill was the quarterback. He's undefeated against Tom Brady, by the way. Tell me how great Tom Brady is that he couldn't beat Taysom Hill one time. One time. Even when he wasn't starting quarterback, he couldn't beat Taysom Hill on the other side of the field. Kryptonite. I do like Aaron Glenn is another guy who was brought up. He played for the Saints late in his career, not very much. He got kind of brought up with Sean Payton as a coach, and now he's the defensive coordinator for the Lions. Obviously, they're not a good team. But I love the guy as a cultural fit. I think the Saints are some team, and they've already said, Mickey Loomis, the general manager, has said, this is not a rebuild. We're not firing the staff. The staff's in place. We're just hiring a head coach. Dennis Allen just makes the most sense. Plus, Chris Richard, who's their defensive backs coach, who was the Legion of Boom defensive backs coach, and then I think became Seattle's defensive coordinator. But he's interviewed for multiple defensive coordinator jobs. Real easy if you move Dennis Allen up to head coach to move Chris Richard up to defensive coordinator and keep all your assistants. I don't know. That's a lot of talking about the Saints.
Look, hey, I know we're going to go to something else, but I just got to throw this out there. Like, I think we've reached that age now, right, where guys who are getting interviewed for head coaching positions are guys that we saw play, which is really weird, right? I mean, when you're hearing stuff like Byron Leftwich, Aaron Glenn, D'Amico Ryan, I was watching the game on Sunday, and I had to take a double take. I actually went on Google and searched it. Wes Welker.
Yes.
For the 49ers. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But, like, it's going to be interesting to see which one of these guys is the first one to land a job. I want to see, I guess that's how people used to feel about Singletary Ditka back in the day. I remember Ditka when he was a tight end. But it's just nutty, man. My favorite has to be Welker.
I probably can't point to it, but that I just put on the screen, that's a Mike Ditka autograph photo.
Oh, nice.
He coached the Saints.
So Andrew, throw it out there. Who's your favorite ex-player name that you hear batted around?
For coaches, I heard Mark Brunell is like the quarterback's coach over in Detroit, which is kind of cool. So I guess he's working over there with Dan Campbell. So that'll be exciting to see what he can do. I don't know what they're going to do with Jared Goff, or if they're going to draft maybe another quarterback. Maybe they go for a guy like Kenny Pickett or something, but it'll be interesting to see because I mean Brunell's always got a kind of a special place in my heart. He was an amazing quarterback for us for a while. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what he could do. Keenan McCardle too, also a wide receivers coach over in Minnesota. So
you got some good receivers too.
Yeah, they do. I don't know what whoever takes that job. Maybe McCardle comes back to Jacksonville. We'd love to have him back, and we'll see what happens.
Well, Jeff, I think that's where we're going, right? I mean, like, what is the best position? Which coach has this?
It's a good discussion. So twofold. So we'll go one at a time because there are the positions where the question is which first-year head coach has the best chance of making a deep run. There's a second question, which we'll start with, which is the best job opening? Because just because you have a ready-made team. Again, I mentioned 3 of these teams were winning teams. The Dolphins, the Raiders, the Saints, winning teams. That doesn't mean they're the best job opening as far as if you're going to be a first-year head coach. So what do you guys think as far as what is the best job opening? What is the best head coaching spot? And you can include the 4 that got filled already. But what is the best head coaching spot to land in for long-term success?
Go ahead, Andrew, because I got to think on this one.
Yeah, I can start on this one.
Go ahead, run it out.
I'd argue the Jaguars. They've got a top pick. They've got Trevor Lawrence, who I don't think anyone questions can be an NFL quarterback. They've got some talent. It's not like they're talentless. They got Josh Allen on defense. They got James Robinson on offense. Travis Etienne, I think, was a bad draft pick, to be quite honest, because you had James Robinson, but not a bad player, so you can figure it out if you're a smart coach. I'd argue the Jaguars are a pretty good spot to start because, frankly, unfortunately, they've got slightly lower expectations because of recent developments. And also because you probably have your Joe Burrow, your franchise quarterback, in-house. I don't see any reason to doubt Trevor Lawrence based on his rookie season. He had some rough moments, for sure. But you've got some talent. You've also got what I think is a division that you can kind of sneak up in. I don't think it's incredibly dangerous. Top to bottom. The AFC West. So this is the reason I don't say the Raiders. The AFC West has Mahomes, Herbert, maybe Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, and even Teddy Bridgewater is not a bad quarterback if Aaron Rodgers doesn't go to Denver. I feel like the AFC South, you've got some leeway to maybe figure things out. So personally, I think the Jaguars long term might be one of the more fun job openings. And Andrew, I hope I didn't steal your answer.
No, you didn't. I think if the Jags can make a change in the front office, get a good GM, get a good setup there, I think it could be. I would agree with you. For me, I would say I'm torn between Minnesota and Las Vegas, because I just think their rosters, I feel like that's a great setup to be in. So I can see maybe those two teams. I can't pick one over the other. I was trying to figure that out while you were explaining the Jaguars. I was like, why would Vegas be better than Minnesota? But I think they're both. I'm tied between those two right now. I can't make a decision.
Look, I think if you're a first-time coach, those are the two jobs that jump out, right? The Minnesota and the Vegas. If you're a Mike McDaniel, if you're an O'Connell, if you're one of those guys, you can go into a pretty ready-made team, right, and kind of learn on the fly with that. Maybe even keep some of the coordinators, whatever you want to do. Look, Homer or not, I'm telling you, if it's a strong personality with head coaching experience, Miami is the best position you could possibly come to. We've got the second most cap space coming in right to the year. We're still stocked up with draft picks, 2 number ones next year, right? A couple of 2s behind that. Your defense is young, right? I mean, this was still the second youngest team in the league from the blow up from Flores before. On the offensive side of the ball, Jalen Waddle gives promise, but you've got enough money that if you're a respected coach who can hold your ground, like Harbaugh would be perfect there. That's just what it is, because Ross is going to back up a little bit and listen to him just because he came from Michigan, apparently. But look, man, you've got the money to spend for free agency. South Beach is always a place people will want to come as professional athletes if you give them a reason. But, I think a first-time coach, like they're talking about Kellen Moore or McDaniel, I think they just get ate up in Miami. They just get swallowed in the whole mess. But I think Minnesota and Las Vegas are both great jobs.
So now taking that into account, and you could have the same answer, which coach who may have not been named yet has the best chance of making a deep playoff run in season 1? And let's face it, it's not unprecedented to make a deep playoff run in your first or second season.
No.
So which opening seems like the spot that you can slide a coach in, make that run towards a Super Bowl and a championship game, whatever it may be? I know I have my answer, and it might be predictable.
Look, for me, I'll jump right in, and I think the hire's already been made. It's Josh McDaniels. He's already won a playoff game. He did it in Denver in his first stint coming through as a coach. The pieces are there. It's a really, really rough division to be a part of, but they weathered that storm this year, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't go backwards at all. I mean, they should just keep moving forward. I think McDaniels has a great opportunity to make a run.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, that's a tough one. I would probably say Doug Peterson. I think he's done it before. I think he knows how to do it. I think if he can get the right setup, maybe he lands, a Minnesota or maybe a New Orleans. I think he could really take that team to the playoffs.
I think I'm gonna make the obvious choice. The team, to me, now I think the Saints are going to hire Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator. And if you watch the Saints, even Jeremiah watching the COVID version of the Saints defense, I think was kind of impressed with how oppressive they were. They shut out Tom Brady in the last month of the season. The Saints, if they hired Dennis Allen, now I would also say if they hired Doug Peterson with Dennis Allen staying on as defensive coordinator, which I hope would happen, but I don't think it's worth the risk to go outside. Like if they hire someone else, maybe he quits. I don't know. It was a 9-8 team that set the NFL record for the most starters in a season last year. And the other teams who had set the record previously in the last few years, they won 4 games each. The Saints were 9-8. And again, San Francisco beat the Rams, who were winning 17-0, or the Saints would have been in the playoffs. I don't know. I think next year, again, I think Jacksonville's got the long-term run. I think next year, the team that's got the greatest shot, and I'm close to saying the Raiders too, Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be a homer. I got to say the Saints. Their defense, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo. Assuming they get Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins doesn't retire, that defense is elite.
But your offense is a mess.
No,
that
it's
comes from
not.
a guy in Miami.
They got Alvin Kamara.
Well, yeah, but you got a tight end throwing him the ball right now, and nobody else on the outside.
Well, they do need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Or again, Taysom Hill is 7-2 as a starting quarterback. He is 5-0 against the NFC South as a starting quarterback the last 2 seasons. I don't think the worst case scenario for the Saints is all that bad. I think he's better than a lot of quarterbacks. He had in fairness, his statistics this year are messed up because against Dallas, he had a mallet finger on his middle finger.
Mm-hmm.
This injury kept Russell Wilson out for more than a month. Taysom Hill didn't miss a snap, except for when he had COVID that one game against Miami, and Ian Book had to play. But we won't talk about that. But that game against Dallas, they couldn't get his finger right. He couldn't get the grip right, and the fourth quarter turned out not so good passing the ball. Against the Jets, his next game, he had the ball sliding out of his hands a couple times. They manipulated the splint. And then, so he started 5 games. He turned over the ball 4 times against Dallas after he hurt his finger. He did not have a single turnover the other 4 games. And when you have a defense that can shut out Tom Brady, all your quarterback needs to do is not turn over the ball. Not one single turnover.
Yeah.
In 4 games, Drew Brees didn't even do that very often. That's impressive. I mean, so I'm not saying I'm not standing on the Taysom Hill bandwagon, although I love the guy. He stands for everything that's right with football. He's a guy who's I'm 7-2 as a starter, and I have to play 3rd string tight end and 4th string running back, and I have to be the gunner on special teams and play kick coverage and all this stuff. All right, I'll do it with a smile on my face. By the way, that's the culture that Sean Payton brought to the Saints. And that's why all of these coaching hires mean such a big deal, because head coach can bring such a thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Andrew, I think you swayed me completely, because I don't know why I didn't connect the two. But if Peterson lands in Minnesota, That's scary.
Ooh.
It can be. It can be very scary. I mean, we saw what he did with, Carson Wentz and then into the Nick Foles. He put some new life back in Nick Foles with that run, what he could do with Cousins and the other guys around him. And it just seems like how am I trying to say this? It seems like his personality would fit very well in that whole Minnesota way as well. I mean, I think one of the knocks that they gave him around New Jersey and Philly was he was too much of a Bible guy. Like the Eagle fans were like, this guy's preaching Christianity over and over. And that was like, I don't know. It was something that they held against him. But if he's that strong in his belief, it kind of seems to me that Minnesota might be a good place to do that. I think the fan base might respond, but the players all together, I think it's in place. I think Peterson could do a lot of damage up there.
Agreed. Yeah, that roster is it's nasty. They have Thielen, they have Dalvin Cook, they have Justin Jefferson. I mean, the defense is pretty good as well. So I think they could definitely go places. But we'll see what Jacksonville does. Jeff thinks Jacksonville is the best spot. I think if they got a new GM, I would agree with you. But I think right now, if we hold on to Balky, I think it's going to be more of the same and could set us back potentially.
Yeah,
we overlook how bad ownership can ruin everything.
Well, but here's what I have seen that we didn't kind of bring up, and I'm sure you know this, Andrew, but like Shad Khan is another guy not afraid to spend money, right? Like he will invest to do this right? So I see where you're talking about. If you move Balky and put somebody else in that position, I mean, Khan doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's pinching pennies. I mean, he's willing to spend to make this team better. And I don't know what your draft picks look like coming down the pipe, but I'm pretty sure you're set up okay.
Yeah, we have some decent draft capital. We have the number one pick, so that'll be nice. And then I think if we can trade some picks, maybe we tag and trade Cam Robinson. Maybe we move some players around, clear up some cap. I think we could potentially have a good draft. But I feel like I could do a whole nother podcast on that.
Yeah. Oh, so Jeff, I don't know where we're going to go with this, but can we just one little thing? Can we just throw out a crazy fantasy that we would love to see? All of us are looking for coaches, right? So if you could pull that one string and magically make this happen, how do you do it? Who? I think we already got your answer. In New Orleans, I think you already know your guy, right? But fantasy book this thing. Fantasy booking. Who do you want in?
Well, assuming Sean Payton's not going to decide to unretire, Dennis Allen's the guy for the Saints.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Caldwell. I think that would be a good fit.
So I'm going completely off radar and board with this one. I say instead of packaging our picks together to go get Deshaun Watson, we package those picks together, give them to New Orleans, and welcome Sean Payton to a new home in South Florida. I mean, that's draft capital well spent to me. I mean, Payton's not done. When you step away, you're not done. So, yeah, if I could go way off. Secondly, it'll be Harbaugh.
No, I'll take the 3 first-round draft picks, and I think I'd be okay with that.
I think we can do some business, man. I think. Hey, look.
All right, let's get our owners in contact.
Have your people call my people, right?
Yeah, Gail, get on the phone with Stephen Ross. You probably have to go to the University of Michigan to get him because he's a weird homer.
He's in a Delta Phi kegger.
All right, guys. I think it's about time to wrap it up. This is going to be the longest podcast in an FL team's history. Until probably next year's Coaching Carousel.
Yeah, I don't know, man. EJ and I, we kind of went on a playoff rant for a little while. But, these are fun, man, especially like this, just sitting around and talking, seeing where it rolls. So this thing it's not near over. It's going to be a crazy couple weeks.
Yeah. No, we could probably do this again in a week. In a week. Ooh, can't even speak English anymore. Lost control of my language. All right. Hey, let's wrap it up. Andrew Eshman from the Jag Roar Podcast. Check it out. Jeremiah Hensley, Fins in the Sea podcast on FL Teams. And it's me, Jeff Macolino, on Bolts and Bats in the Bay. Also an FL Teams podcast. By the way, FL Teams podcast, top 10% globally. How about that, huh?
Man, that's huge.
We're a small state. I mean, we're a big state, but still, top 10% globally is good. Anywho,
Yeah.
Hey, go to flteams.com to get your sports news and coverage. The show notes of this podcast, I'm sure, will include Jeff, Jeremiah, and Andrew's social media accounts. You can follow us there. But follow FL Teams on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and wherever you're watching this live broadcast, if you're watching this live broadcast, because flteams.com is a great independent journalism source that's bringing you great coverage of all Florida sports and more, as you can see from this podcast. Andrew, Jeremiah, thank you guys for joining me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, man. I love these things. Even in the season, we should do more like this. You know?
Amen.
Love it.
We'll do it.
Thanks so much. All right.
All right.
All right. Isaac, roll those end credits. Boom, we're out.